You know, it's so interesting in life. Sometimes you have these moments that are kind of seemingly unimportant, kind of innocuous, right? And those discussions end up turning into something pretty massive. And I ended up having one of those September 2017 with my guest today, Kara Jones. And for me, I was really a spectator of this tsunami that was about ready to hit landfall in their lives at that time. But we're going to get into that. But first, I want to introduce my wonderful friend, Kara Jones. Thank you for joining us on the show today, my dear.
Yay, thanks for having me. I'm so excited.
I'm so excited to have you here. So, before we get into today's topic, I know you had actually brought a song to add to our Overcomer playlist. What's that song and why did you pick it?
Okay, it's Confidence by Sanctus Real. I'll just tell you the lyrics is why I picked it. And then once you hear my story, you'll know why I picked it. It starts off as, I'm not a warrior. I'm too afraid to lose. I feel unqualified for what you're calling me to do. But Lord, with your strength, I got no excuse because broken people are exactly who you use. So give me faith like Daniel in the lion's den. Give me hope like Moses in the wilderness. Give me a heart like David. Lord, be my defense so I can face my giants with confidence.
Oh, I love that song. And I love that band too, by the way. That's a good choice. But I'm going to still figure out the song and I'm going to put it in the show notes because there is a song that I know was a big benefit to you and your husband early on in this discussion that we're going to be having today. But I'm going to find it. And I'm going to put that in the show notes too.
In the middle of my dream.
What's that?
I'll wake up.
Yeah, totally.
Oh yeah.
Yep, exactly. So before we begin today, why don't you tell me a little bit about you and your husband? Because when we initially met, I think you guys had recently moved to the Pacific Northwest from LA, and your husband was a TV producer down there. So why don't you kind of give me a little background on what it was that he was doing and maybe why you guys decided to come up to the Pacific Northwest?
Well, my husband is a producer and we were living in LA. We had just had our first son and it was pretty lonely. I had no family. I had my friends, but none of them had kids. So, when your friends don't have kids, you say you're tired. When they get home, they're like, we go out to brunch and they were saying they're tired. I'm like, you have no idea what tired means. It means you went to bed like late. Like,
right.
You sorry, but that's not tired. And so my husband just always traveled. And so his friends they lived in Hawaii, they lived all over the country, and they just fly to the set. And so we had the opportunity to move to Seattle and we literally jumped on it. It was like I had gone to a MOPS meeting and I said, God, just open my heart to moving. And that day he opened a house for us and we moved up the next month.
Wow. That's crazy.
Traveled for work.
Yeah. And how old was your son at the time?
10 months.
Okay. Yeah. You were like, I need a new nest and this nest is no longer working.
Yeah. Because after Reader was born, he left 3 days after he was born, was gone 17 days on Extreme Makeover Home Edition.
Wow.
So that was our life. Like, I can't be like, no, don't work.
Right. Exactly. And so are both of you from this area?
He's from Texas. I'm from Seattle.
Okay. So it was a really big benefit for you to be able to get close to family since you were spending a lot of those days without your husband at home.
Yeah. First time stay-at-home mom.
Yeah, totally get it. And so what I remember is Jay had done Extreme Makeover. He'd also worked on the Tyra Banks Show and a number of other things.
Yeah, he proposed to me on the Tyra Banks Show.
And that's right.
He worked on Ice Road Truckers, Extreme Makeover Home Edition, Hoarders.
Which he's doing right now. He's working on Hoarders again, correct?
Yes, and he's done he interned on the Jerry Springer, but he doesn't want people to know that.
Oh shoot, you just said it. Should we edit that
I know.
out?
You said you like it. So real, that's the real. So.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I love it. And so when I initially met you guys, actually, it was my husband ended up running into you. You're working at a bowling alley at the time, and you guys started up a conversation. And you and your husband had actually you had created this idea for a show that was fully your idea, something that the two of you wanted to do together called The Experience.
Yep.
And I remember Jay telling me it was like a cross between intervention and survivor, I think is what I was told.
I guess our goal was reviving, rebuilding, connecting, and healing.
Yeah.
So
why did you guys come up with an idea? Why did you even want to do a show yourself personally?
Personally, okay. So being in the industry that Jay was in, once we had kids, Jay made a vow to me and to his kids that he would only work on shows that were that changed lives, that weren't being TV. It can be very manipulating, and as a producer, he would have to lie and make people do things, and it didn't sit right on him. And so, we did a lot of praying, and that's when Hoarders came about. And it was like, great, because, they do help people, and he does, they do great things for those Hoarders.
Right.
And we've always done things on our own. In the beginning, we used to do like really raunchy, stupid sketch comedy, and it just didn't sit right. It didn't feel good. It didn't, you know what I mean? And so, we just started coming up with ideas, and God put that one on our heart. And he put it on our heart because he knew what we were getting ready to go into, you know what I mean? Like it was funny because like all the things that we would learn after every episode, and it was, I think, for us, preparing us for what was the tsunami that was just getting ready to happen.
Right. Yeah. So I know that when Randy and you talked at the time, I think the way you guys were doing it is that you would have mentors that mentor just in like a specific area, like money, right? So when you were saying, hey, we're looking for, some mentors. And then I think you started talking a little bit about the show and specifically trying to find somebody that could work with a woman, which was one of do you call them contestants? No, they're not contestants. What are they?
You're getting mad at me because it's not a contestant. It's
not
guest.
The guest that really has no idea, because this really is set up in kind of an intervention type of style. So she was suggested by her family to really be able to potentially benefit from this.
A contestant. I mean, because they had to submit.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, I think that's good.
We were doing a new thing, so I don't.
It was a little loosey-goosey there.
A lot of guerrilla style directing.
Yeah. So you and Randy talked a little bit, and then and you thought, okay, well, maybe Arwen might be good as the financial mentor on that specific show. So I remember having a conversation with you and Jay. I was actually still sitting in my car parked out in front of my house, and we were having this very lively, wonderful conversation. And then I don't know which one of you just kind of said, well, would you just be the mentor, the person who mentors her the whole way through this thing? And I'm like, it sounds interesting to me. I'd be happy to do it. And I'm telling you, it was one of the coolest highlights of my life. I told my family when I got home, I said, if I could do that every quarter, I absolutely would. So it was such a fantastic experience. So
awesome.
So let me kind of bring back and kind of paint this picture of what this all looked like. So we all arrived unbeknownst to this wonderful woman, right? Her name was Danielle at the time. Her family was in on this. They had suggested her for the show. She was battling, I think, postpartum depression, some financial issues, body issues and things of that nature, and just had been really struggling. And so they thought that this could be a really great reset for her. And so I just remember that we were all at this trailhead for what felt like, and I think was hours, because all of a sudden yeah, exactly. Because
people think this happens like, oh, no, it takes a long time.
And do you remember, was it, I just remember park rangers coming
Oh,
and basically trying to shut the whole thing down before it
yeah,
even
and
got
when I think
started.
Jay said something about God and praying, and he had to say something, and the guy was like, turned his head and walked away, and then we saw him on the trail or something, remember? And he just was like, I don't know. See, that's where my husband producer comes into play. Like
He managed
good
to
at his
get he
job.
managed to get it passed and get it through, because they were almost not going to let us.
Oh
And
no.
the whole thing was, there were going to be, if if this woman Danielle accepted the experience, if she accepted it, she was going to go out into the wilderness for 3 days
With
with
strangers.
5 strangers and a camera crew. Awesome. I would
He's
never
brave,
have the
brave.
guts to do it.
No.
So
How would
she
you like
did.
hitting Jay like
I know, which she was so gracious, and she was such a sweet gal. And so she did. So, so all of a sudden the camera crew comes out, her family's talking to her, and the look of surprise. And, Jay comes out and, basically gets to the point to say, will you accept the experience? And she did. And so then I get pulled on screen, and, we get introduced and everything. And then all of a sudden she basically has her backpack handed to her, which has, clothes and supplies for the next 3 days that her family's put
by
together.
her husband? Like,
Yeah, exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, you have to be really brave.
I know. You have to be brave as a spouse to
Yes.
do that. You know what I'm saying? To know. And actually, that's probably a lot of experience that Jay would have with Hoarders, because I always wonder that same thing too. It's like, gosh, it's got to take a lot of courage for the people who suggest a hoarder for the show to do that, because of course that can go, go bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so our
One
girl.
reason I say the bad thing about the lawn or the packing is because when we went to our Make-A-Wish trip, Jay, we were in New York, and we flew from New York from treatment to Make-A-Wish.
Okay.
But Jay was back home. I had all my clothes packed on our suitcase broke. So I was like, go get a new suitcase. I'm going to put all my clothes here, pack them. He didn't pack half of them. He had like moved them to another, and he's like, no, I didn't do that. I didn't do it. And I'm like, so when I got there, I had to like re-buy all this stuff. So when I say you trust your husband to pack,
yeah, like, thanks a lot. yeah,
but
totally.
I mean, he was stressed. I should say, when your daughter's in treatment, you are
sure, of course, yeah.
Really not
totally, yeah,
totally there.
Yeah. So she accepted it. So, kissed her babies goodbye, and her husband and her mother and mother-in-law, and I think maybe a couple of other people that she could not figure out why all these people were there, right? Until obviously this happened.
Why are we hiking?
Right, exactly. Why are we standing at this trailhead for 2 hours? What's going on? And so I remember, it was like it was yesterday. I mean, this was September 1st of 2017,
Yeah.
and so here we were. It's Labor Day weekend. We're heading into the wilderness. I don't even know where we're going, right? And of course, you guys did, but we've got this camera crew, and you and I are just hiking. We're hiking through the woods. The camera crew's behind us. Danielle's one step behind me. She's kind of talking to them a little bit. And you and I are just engaged in conversation, talking about our kids, getting to know each other a little bit more. And it led into this conversation. I can remember it so vividly. That's why I said at the beginning, it's so interesting how you can have a conversation that at the moment doesn't trigger to be so significant until something happens after it. And then it's like you package it up and you timestamp it, right? And so here we were. It was a beautiful weekend. Oh my gosh, it was such a beautiful weekend. The Pacific Northwest, if any of you have never been here, it's just in the summertime, it's stunning. September is so good here. And so it was warm, you have the evergreens, everything is still just lush and beautiful and green and vibrant, more shades of green than you can ever imagine. And I just remember walking behind you, and we're just talking, and you're telling me about this dental appointment that had occurred with your daughter, and then led to this, other appointment. And I'm sure it's not going to be that big of a deal. And we talked a little bit about that. So why don't you take all of us back to that moment and kind of paint a little bit better of that picture of what led up to that conversation, and then certainly what happened afterwards.
Yeah, we were talking about how Hunter had gone to the dentist, and the dentist had thought she had seen a tumor on a panoramic x-ray, and we had gone to our pediatrician, and she didn't seem too concerned because most of the time tumors in the jaw are benign, like 99% chance benign, they told us. So we went back to the dentist and it had grown like within a week. And we said, we're calling Seattle Children's every day. They told us it's an 18-month wait, but we're going to call them every day. But no, everybody tells us not to worry. So we're really not that worried. Well, we see the dentist next week and she was like, it's grown. Like literally she had a like underbite.
Yeah.
So like it had grown in a week. Like significantly in a week. So she called Seattle Children's. We didn't know this till way later, until I've seen her interview. But she fast tracked us to Seattle Children's because they called us the next day and they were like, yeah, we'd like to get you in. So when we met you, she had just gone in for like pictures and she had just gone in for like an MRI.
Right.
And they were telling us that 99% chance, like I said, that we think this is nothing. So we just went on with our lives. We had a television show to produce and do, so we did it.
Yep. And you had told me that day exactly what you just said. It was like, oh, it really shouldn't be anything. I mean, I think you may have alluded to the fact that there was a very, very small chance that it could be cancerous or something like that. But it was just kind of that thing like, but I'm sure we're just believing that she's going to be fine and it's benign.
Yeah. I recall this Judah Smith sermon, and he talked about how we don't know like what the future holds. So why are we like, we can panic and worry about it so much, but then when we get to the moment, it doesn't even seem to like happen. We can go over the interview or go over that in our head and then it ends up happening totally different. So that kind of just changed my whole outlook on things. So I try not to like, because I'm a workout person. I get worked up. Like so, I was like, okay, Judah, I'll work on this. And so that was it. I was like, okay.
Not letting it steal your joy in the moment.
99%. Like, I'm like, oh, good God, we got God.
Right.
Like,
I know. What's
I got him on my side. Look, yeah, we still have him on our side.
Yeah, of course. So then you guys get home. We wrapped the show. It was so phenomenal. We had such a great time. Just everybody just loved it. And then what happened in the preceding week?
So then she started having, they got the test results back. They had taken the tumor out and we got the call from Dr. Susharla and he said, you need to go to Children's and see Dr. Pinto. He's a neuroblastoma specialist. And I had heard that word before because one of my MOPS friends, moms of preschoolers, their son was diagnosed with it, but he had stage 1. So he had like 2 rounds of chemo. I still wasn't thinking in my brain neuroblastoma. I just had known, I'd heard that. And so I was like, okay. And then we go to Seattle Children's and then they send you to the cancer floor. They send you to the oncology floor and you're like, you look around and your heart like literally drops.
Wow.
So we walked in the room and Dr. Pinto, he said, Hunter, he was like, she actually looks really good for stage, or they didn't know, they hadn't done any staging of her.
So
yet.
They had like the deep pathology.
They just had taken the tumor and they said neuroblastoma. So he was thinking that maybe this is just stage 1 and neuroblastomas does not present itself in the jaw. So he was like, him and Dr. Susarla were like really talking. They were going to like reform her jaw, take her whole jaw out and put like a fake jaw in because, in the coming days after her scans came and they said it on September 21st, we got the news that it was stage 4. Our doctor was shocked. Usually like stage 4 means these kids are finding out in an ER because the tumor is so large, it's blocking things where they can't walk. Like Hunter was like running around. She really didn't have any symptoms until that moment, until she just had a cough that she couldn't get rid of. And that was like lingering from like the dental. So it was like, okay. And so when he said that it was stage 4, he was surprised. He said she was the healthiest stage 4. And like, it had to be like God in all those ways because of how the dentist took a panoramic x-ray. They never do that in a 4-year-old. She just said, do you think Hunter would stay still? I'm like, why not? Try it. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, why not? If it wasn't for her, like Hunter, we would have found out. Maybe our Dr. Pinto was saying maybe 3 or 4 months later, like, and the tumor would have been, she only had I know this sounds terrible, but she only had a tumor the size of a navel orange. We're talking about kids that have size of tumors of a football.
Wow.
Like, and watermelons.
Wow.
So it was like really God's timing, like all that.
And so when they told you, when you heard those words land that she had stage 4 neuroblastoma, what in the world went through your mind?
Well, I mean, I prayed, and I literally sat in a fetal position probably for the whole entire night, because I couldn't wrap my head around it. I couldn't wrap my head around that. My husband just, he couldn't take it in. He had to go to sleep. And I was like, how are you going to sleep?
Right.
But, you know, people process things so differently. And it just, we gave ourselves like the day to really take it in. And then God had a plan. Like we said, how could we, after what we had gone through that summer, like we had no funding, we had nothing, you know, like we were spending some of our own money on this stuff, and he was making all these things, crazy miracles happen. Like, how could we not trust him at this moment?
Right.
And so, like I said, that the show really was for us. Like, God was preparing us for the next season we were going into.
Right. Right. But I have to imagine, with the limited knowledge that you had of neuroblastoma, because I have, you know, some good friends from high school who lost their son to that. He was the exact age of at first time he was, when he was diagnosed, 18 months, and he passed away a little past his 3rd birthday. I mean, it's the largest funeral or memorial service I've ever been to. I
see my friends lose their babies every day. And
yeah.
I had to, like, this month, for healing, I rarely go on Facebook, because so many of my friends, like neuroblastoma, like when they told us it's a 50-50% chance, you know,
even at stage 4,
yeah.
4, she's 50-50
well,
chance.
Because they have to see if the treatment will even work. So, like, because if the chemo doesn't work or anything, neuroblastoma comes back with a vengeance. Like, you don't want to hear the word relapse, because it's so smart.
Wow. So you guys
go at it with everything. Hunter
yeah.
had
well, how did that? Yeah. But I mean, how did so I just remember, because Jay, sorry to interrupt you really quick, but Jay, because of his work in TV and being a producer, he made the choice, or I'm sure you both as a family made this choice, to document everything. And I remember he was utilizing social media to show this journey that the 2 of you were going with, the 4 of you. I mean, really your family, you know, your son and your daughter, and, you know, and everybody else on the periphery too, but to really document what it is that you as a family went through. And I remember watching that first video of, you know, you guys getting out of like the SUV and, you know, taking the little backpack out, and, you know, and this was going to be your home, Seattle Children's. How many days did Seattle Children's end up being your home?
Okay. We stayed the night at Seattle Children's 138 days. I can't even, I mean, I have like beads of courage to tell you how many days we actually went there, but Hunter was there. If she wasn't inpatient, we were at the hospital a few times a week. And if she ever spiked a fever or anything, we were in the ER within an hour of that fever.
Wow. Because there was a lot of times she couldn't even be home because of fear that she would get sick with something else.
Well, usually that's what happened. We were home, and she'd come home, and with the chemo, she'd get to 0 counts. And so anything, cold, I mean, any little thing, like literally anything could have killed her. Like a cold could have killed her. We've known kids who died from a cold. So like when people are like, oh, COVID, it just, you know, we're talking about, you know, a flu killing a kid because they're at 0 counts.
Right.
So
of white blood cells. Is that what you mean?
Yeah. Like she has 0 counts. And so she would get something and she'd spike a fever. We wouldn't know what it was. We'd go in and they'd do all these tests or cultures that when she'd get a fever, that's an indication of an infection.
Mm-hmm.
But we were blessed that she never once had a line infection. She never once even saw well, this is a miracle. She never once saw the ICU, which is like, that's not, both those things are very rare in neuroblastoma.
And she had during that first year, and maybe certainly tell me longer than that, she had the line that goes into her nose, and because that goes where? Into her stomach?
Into her stomach. Yeah, Jay and I, from the very beginning, we met the first day we had they had a neuroblastoma parent conference, which was actually really weird. And I'm glad we were late to it, because I'm glad we didn't find out what they were talking about, but we had met some parents there, and we were still really good friends with them. Like, we just went on vacation for healing together. We all get together and we do like this healing weekend, and we raise money together, and we met these families, and we were like, what did you do? Like, tell us. And one of them said, put a tube in and start doing natural food. So we put a tube in, because we used to call her Always Hungry Hunter. The first day of chemo, she wanted nothing. And I was like, I can't deal with this. So, I mean, I put a lot of work on me, because we put a tube in the beginning. Usually they wait for a while to put a tube in, but we put a tube in the beginning and started her on a food called Nourish. It was all organic, natural food.
And that was because she would not consume it via chewing it. She could do that. Is that what you're saying? But she just had no appetite to do so.
At times she had no appetite. And because she would throw up, I mean, she would, my son made a comment one time, and it actually broke my heart, because he had gotten the stomach flu, and we were laying there, and I was laying next to him, and he said, Mom, you're really good at that throw up bag. And because I would be laying next to Hunter, and I would have to, like, Mom feel that she's about to throw up. Because if not, I mean, we had sheets on layers of sheets on layers of sheets, because we couldn't get through a night without throw up on our sheets.
Yeah.
For months, years.
Wow. And so that was something that you guys made as a choice to use the tube early on.
Yeah.
And I remember, I think, because how often did that have to be cleaned, pulled out? And
it's supposed to be monthly, but then they gave Hunter like a break, because she would do it herself. And they said, as long as anytime it like came out, because she didn't like to she didn't like new ones, because they were very
rigid.
Yes. So they gave us, she got away with a lot of things, because she would actually insert the tube herself. But if we could pull it out, and when she'd throw up, because a lot of times she'd throw it up, but if we clean it real good, they would let her use that same one. So she could get away with it for 2 months, but they usually would make her do it monthly. And every day we had to change her line. She had
that's what I recall. Okay.
She had a Hickman line, and every day, Jay or I had to flush it, and then weekly we had to change the line.
And what is the line going into? What?
So that's where her chemo, all her medicine. So if she needed a blood transfusion, if she needed chemo, if she needed immunotherapy, when they took her cells for her, because she did a stem cell transplant. So they took her own cells. They actually took the stems from the Hickman line.
Oh, okay. And that goes into what part of the body? It goes into
like all the it's just like
the arteries and stuff.
Yes.
Got it.
So she had 2 of them, so that she could run. They could run chemo, and they could run all different things. Like, because most of the time she would have 2 chemos running at once.
Got it. And I remember one video, may have been one of, maybe it's the only one. I remember it came with a disclosure or disclaimer at the beginning, that it was only about 3 seconds long, but it was the awful part. It was the you trying as a mom to help her, and her screaming at the top of her lungs, because she just was done. She was just done with the fight in that moment. And just to see you as a parent trying to help your child, and yet you're having to constantly hurt her in the process, had to have been just the worst part of it. And
I feel like, I had to numb a lot of that out of my life. Like, literally numb it.
I have to believe that there were people along the way, well-meaning people, that would say things to you that just were not that helpful.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Yeah. Why don't you tell us that? Because some of
I
us
mean,
who haven't been through that, we need to know
so
what things were not helpful.
So my thing that so my biggest goal when I was there is that I was not there to make friends. If I made friends, then okay. But my number one goal was I was there to be Hunter's advocate. I had to be her number one advocate. And I remember this one night, Hunter was like crying in pain, and we really didn't like to use morphine and things. We didn't like to use hard drugs with her because I have family abuse of it, and a lot of people are like, they can't be addicted, and I'm like, bull crap. I've seen her actually withdraw from morphine when she's come home. So we try to do as much natural stuff as possible. And I had this nurse tell me, like, I'm really tired of her crying, we should just give her some pain medicine. And I was like, no, we're not giving her pain medicine. We need to figure out why she's crying. What is causing these problems? So of course I'm like, I want an x-ray, I want this. And sure enough, it ended up being gas. And all she had to do was take some gas drops that are like nothing. But because I said, you have to deal with her I said, she never was my nurse again. I said, you have to deal with her for a 12-hour shift. I have her 24 hours, 7 days a week. I know her. So, and sure enough, it was, like I said, gas. And you start to know your kid. I mean, you know your kid, but your mom instincts, mama bear really comes out when your kid's suffering.
And I think you have to trust that. I think that is such a significant piece of a process like this, or just even sometimes in, a broken bone, or there's just, something that you're just going, even though the doctor's saying, no, they're fine. You're like, but something just doesn't seem right. And we as women have this significant intuition that oftentimes we will disregard because we can't adequately explain why we feel that way. And so we second guess it, or we allow people who are, who have, education and titles and are very intelligent to tell us something contrary to what we believe. Mm-hmm. And so I commend you for that, for, just standing and fighting. Like you said, you had to be her advocate. She is 4. And even if she was 40, she's going through hell on earth. She's medicated. She's having all of these things being done to her. You can't process that. You can't express well. And so you need somebody who can stand beside you and go, nope, this isn't working, or you need to go further or push past it. So I commend you guys for doing that.
Thank you.
Did you ever have people say to you, because it seems like, I think it's just a thing that people say when they, it's kind of like, somebody goes through loss and they don't really know what to say. Like, I'm so sorry. Or they say, I just could never go through that. How could you, I mean, I just commend you. How could you go through that? Did people ever say that to you?
Oh, all the time. All the time. And the truth is, I mean, I would tell them, you would.
What choice do you have?
You don't have a choice.
What, am I going to just sit down and just watch?
It came from a lot of moms, which, I mean, and I've said it before too. Like when I was sitting in a MOPS meeting when my friend Amanda, when her son was diagnosed with neuroblastoma too, and I sat there and I kept saying, oh, I could never. But I promise you, when you get a diagnosis like that, you can.
Yeah. Because they're your kid.
You're gonna fight for them. I mean, I hope you're gonna fight for them.
I think
I just hope.
I think they are.
I feel bad for anybody whose parents don't, but I'll fight for you. Just call me. I'll fight.
Right. Exactly. So do you? I mean, we'll talk about some of the other specifics, but what would you say? And as we're still kind of talking about this early on process, because I want to get to where Hunter is now, but what would you say in looking back for yourself in that early time period to a mom out there who maybe is just receiving a really significant, devastating diagnosis? Maybe it's their spouse, maybe it's one of their kids. What would you say to them?
Put all your trust in God, put all your trust in Jesus, or your faith. I mean, you have to. I mean, I have I mean, I have so many Bible verses that I love. Isaiah 43:2. When you go through the deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through the rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fires of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you.
Mm,
God made us for, you know, sometimes we don't give ourselves enough credit.
yeah. But Randy had just given me a quote. It said, what was it? Something like she didn't know that she could until she had no other option or something like that. You know, it's like that is life,
Mhm.
right? We
I
don't
mean,
know.
I've even in this process, I've gone to retreats with moms and women, and uh, I'm telling you, when they throw their problems in a bucket, I would probably just want to take mine right back. Like, I know
Mm,
that childhood cancer sounds terrible, but when people talk about their spouses cheating on them and all these things they have, God gives us I mean,
what we can handle.
mhm.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think he gives us what we can't handle too, because he's made us for amazing things.
Yep, exactly. Were there some things during that time that that you sense that people really wanted to be helpful but didn't really know how to help you?
Yeah, I think when you get that diagnosis, we lost a lot of friends. We lost
Wow.
family members to it. We lost. Um, it was crazy because strangers became family. Um, I think it just was so much on them. How do you take that news and like to be there for somebody? Like, my life was everywhere. Like, I had no, when you have a relationship with somebody, it takes time, effort.
Right?
Um, I had no time, effort, anything to put into any relationship during those 3 years. I put my everything into Hunter. Like, my marriage, our marriage failed for a while. Like, that's what we're working on right now, and it takes a lot of time for healing. Like,
Mhm.
healing just takes a long time, and I think it was too much for them, and they just couldn't take it, and it was easier to just back down and say goodbye.
Which that had to have been hard.
Oh yeah, I had to mourn friendships that I was like, I never thought I would have to do. But you know
Ah,
what? God, he put other people in our lives that are just, he put them there for a reason. And
right.
he took the other people out for a reason too.
Right, exactly. It's just the season of life
Mhm.
had come and it had gone, but it certainly on top of everything that you guys were dealing with at the time, it probably just seems like insult to injury. You know what I'm saying?
Sure, yeah. Like how much, what the tumbleweed, or it's just going to keep getting bigger, like
Right.
what more, bring it
Right.
on.
Right, exactly. And I do I want you to, kind of continue on in this process. So here your daughter's battling, she's battling for her life. You guys are doing everything in your power. You've basically had to, try to put your life not completely put it on hold because life still clicks by. You still need to make money. I mean, there's you still have house payments and groceries and and having a dinner and taking a shower. I mean, just probably some of the most
Oh,
basic things just became so unimportant, but yet life still continues on, and people are having parties and they're getting married and they're doing all this stuff. And so at what point did it look like things were working? How long in this process are we at this point where there was a significant ray of hope that you were going in the right direction?
well, it's very difficult because we lived our lives like COVID, like this COVID, we wore masks to the grocery store. I mean, I used to get people who would put their fingers up like Xing me because I was wearing a mask because I was worried they were at the store, sick. And so it was a lot of loneliness. Like, you're very lonely. You can't go out. Like, my daughter, me going out is risking her getting sick. So if I go out with my friends and pick up a cold, I bring that cold home. Like,
Right.
we lived in a bubble. So we pretty much, I feel like we still live in a bubble. I
Mm.
took her out for the first time to, I'm taking this class at church, and I took her to the daycare for the first time because Jay was out of town and she got a cold. You know, it's like it's real. We lived in a bubble for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so how long were you into this process? I mean, you lived at Seattle Children's for, 100 and so how many days?
So we lived we lived at Seattle Children's until so we started in September of 2017. She finished treatment in January 2019, and then we enrolled her in a vaccine trial at Memorial Sloan Kettering in New York. It was 7 shots. We had to go over there 5 times through the year, and it was to bring her chances of survival. So they told us after all the things she went through 5 rounds of intensive chemo, 2 stem cell transplants, 12 rounds of radiation, 6 rounds of immunotherapy. And they still told us, she has 65-75% chance of survival. That's it. So this vaccine was supposed to bring her chances of survival to 90%. So we did it. We fought really hard for it. Our insurance denied us. We had to file for financial aid. We had to fight just to get there. And we did. We always just were we kept saying, if we don't do this, what happens if she relapses? Then we'll be very mad at ourselves that we didn't do this for her.
Right.
And that's not every parent's choice. Every parent, sometimes they we have friends and they're like, we felt done. God told us we were done. And that's great. And their kids are doing great. We didn't feel that from God.
Right.
We felt like God was saying, I give you tools, use them.
Right.
And it may be hard, but you've got to get there.
Right. With every endeavor to heal yourself. But I think you made the point, and I think that that's really important for, any of you out there to hear, is that everybody's different. I mean, this is Kara's journey, with Hunter Rose and their family's choice. And, everybody faces certain moments that they just know inherently that they've come up to that boundary, and they're just kind of like, okay, we've gone far enough. So it's different for everybody. I think that's important for you to point that out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we finished, and we were supposed to finish March of 2020, but COVID hit.
That's a lot because you needed more of a bubble.
It was actually a miracle from God, because we were going to be in New York, when they shut everything down. We were supposed to be there that week when it was absolutely crazy. So Sloan called us and was like, if she has a cold, anything, please don't come. And so of course she got a cold, and I was like, we ain't coming. And we didn't finish treatment until August of 2020. Wow. So she officially finished August 2020. So 3-year process. But she still has 2 more scans, but once she hits these scans in March, she'll have another scan in the following March, and that will be it for her. She just goes on to survivorship.
Wow. And so tell us about her now. So she is how old?
She's 7. Well, she'll be more like 7.5. She's almost 8. And
she's a beautiful. She's a beautiful girl. Beautiful girl.
She just a ray of hope. She looks at life so differently. She every day is like, come on, Mom, why aren't we doing this? It's I have to be on my toes, because she sees life in just a beautiful way. You wouldn't ever experience that unless you went through this. She has ambition. It's so funny. I'm at 8, oh, let's do this. Let's do my hair. Let's get this done. It's not she kind of reminds me of you, Arwen. Go get it. It's let's get up. We're starting our day. What are you doing? We're not sitting around. There's no time for that.
Yeah. She's got things to do, places to go, people to see, and no fear behind it.
Even though we don't see anybody and we don't go anywhere, but we can go to the walk around here or there, but she always has her drive, and her look at things she's just wise beyond her years.
Yeah, and she got to be an honorary police officer. Isn't that what she got to do?
She's met the mayor. She gets to do a lot of things. I mean, I mean, she's got to fly in like private planes and things like, but I would trade a healthy kid for any of those.
Oh, of
You know what I'm
course.
saying?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Mhm.
But I think
Those
her
are the bonuses.
zest for life,
Yeah.
it reminds me of that, um, not, who's Faith, the country singers that they're married.
Faith
Um,
Hill and
Faith Hill, what's her husband's name? Why can't I remember his name?
Tim McGraw.
Yeah, Tim McGraw. Yeah. So I was just thinking that one song, Live Like You're Dying,
Mhm.
and which I believe is his song. And that's the truth of this. I mean, you guys have come so close to the edge, and and now you're getting to see life through a
Yes.
new lens.
Mhm.
And I think that certainly is where you look at God and you go, okay, still don't see all of the picture that has to do with this experience,
Yes.
but I know that there is life after tragedy, after crisis.
Oh yeah.
And you guys are getting to experience that. But I think it's really important to point out something that you had said earlier. The Once the main crisis is over, then you guys, it's like now you're in recovery. So I mean, you guys have dealt with so much focus on her, right? That you alluded to. It took a major toll on your marriage.
Oh yeah.
You probably know statistics. I don't know. You've probably heard them throughout this, but marriage is trying to survive a child going through this, whether the child lives or the child dies. A lot of marriages don't make it because
Fine.
everybody focuses on that one thing. And then all of a sudden now we're going, wait, who is this person standing next to me again? They
Yeah, that's
haven't.
like we said. Like I said to Jay, he used to always put me first, and we were so used to, we had to put Hunter first for so long. It's like he's now having to train himself to put me first because we so like, if she's like, oh, I feel like he's like rushing to her because it was transcribed in our brains for 3 years that she was
Number one.
and that's very difficult for our son, like how much he's gone through. Like people they don't realize that, he went through a lot of trauma. He had to
Sure.
like be picked up from school and go, where am I staying tonight? Like how,
Right. And
what?
who am I staying with tonight?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want my 7-year-old feeling that way.
Right. But it is just part of the
Hunter got a
fallout.
fever. Hunter got a fever. Sorry, buddy. Like, ooh.
Yep. 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 And I mean, I have to commend you both because getting through this, getting to the other side of this, continuing to now, as that Randy kind of talks about, it's like the shrapnel that's still around, and it's those trigger reminders, and you run into it every once in a while as you're still kind of cleaning up life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And getting back to I hate
Normal.
this, the new normal, right? That's that term that's just become
we get talked
overused.
like, when are you guys going to be back to normal? I'm like,
And I don't think normal for you guys is ever going to,
no.
It's never going to be that. I mean, I have to imagine that when you look through pictures of your life that you have pictures you see, and now those pictures aren't just pictures of of a moment. They are prior to this diagnosis and post.
Yeah. Post.
Right.
Yep.
Where you're like, that was the time in life where we just thought, we were getting up and going to work and having kids and, doing, our Bible studies. And then all of a sudden it's just like everything ground to a halt. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Just absolutely crazy. And so tell us about this little girl. She's now she's not in school thanks to COVID.
Well, she's in homeschool thanks to my parents. My dad and stepmom are amazing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Them 3 days a week. And she's in first grade. She's learning to read, and it got really difficult. She wears hearing aids, and so her hearing aids have been falling out because she's been growing, which is great, but we have an appointment next week to get fitted for new hearing aids, and it's sounds and things are different for her. Like we've learned that, she reads lips. So like even going to school or anything, we would have to tell a teacher to wear a shield because it would just sound muddled to her.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And
she has a 95% chance of a secondary illness because of all she went through. So we
So
always are on radar.
yeah, are the hearing aids, is that a fallout from chemo?
Yeah.
Is that what that is?
Mm-hmm.
So just some secondary stuff that comes from the what you're using to fight it.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I remember one of just the coolest things about you as a woman is we finished this experience, right? This weekend, this Labor Day weekend. And, we've reunited this changed woman back with her family. And at least I want to say it was miraculous.
You did a great job acting. If it's not,
yeah, that's good, true.
Girl.
Yeah. And I remember as you and I were standing there as she was still on camera talking to her family and her kids and all this kind of stuff. And I looked over to you and you had these dog tags around your neck. And I was like, oh, what is that? And you kind of showed it to me. I'm like, oh, I love that. And it was Joshua 1:9, which I want to make sure that I get it right. I have that right. It said, have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So you were wearing that on that experience. And then you, in this private moment of you and I, with all these people around, just whispering to one another, you took it off and you gave it to me. And I have held on to that. It is still, I have purged nearly all of my jewelry. And that is one thing that I still use and love. And I just, you're such a woman of faith. And there is zero question in my mind, because I saw it right from the beginning as you guys were going through this. You publicly and loudly kept declaring your faith that God would get you through this, that God was still on the throne, that no matter how hard it was getting, you still believed that God was awesomer. Tell me about that. Tell us about the God is awesomer thing. And then tell us about your faith. Tell me about your faith, because I know that is such a big piece that walked you through this.
So my husband always, I don't know if not that he makes fun of me, but I always make up words. So we first did our first video, talking about when we had to tell people that Hunter was diagnosed with stage 4 neuroblastoma. And we had talked about our show and everything. And I just said, our God is awesomer, than cancer, than anything. And my husband's like, awesomer. And then I found out, he was like, that's not a word. And so, but it's been our word. God is awesomer. He's awesomer than anything. So, I have so many miracle stories. I could go on and on. I'll tell you one recently that, so Hunter spent 138 days in the hospital. And I used to pray when it was finished, when she didn't spend any more time in the hospital, that God would give me back, the 138 days and all the time back with my family, which seems like a really high 138 days. I'm working, Jay's working. And sure enough, COVID hit. I got laid off on March 16th and was told that I'd go back to work on August 2nd. And if you do the math, it's exactly 138 days.
Wow.
And that's God. That's not anything but him answering a prayer. And then August 2nd came. And not that I was praying for COVID to continue, but, I was like, I'd always prayed that I get all my time back with Reader, all the time that we spent. And I'm still on unemployment. I hope I go back to work soon. But we have been really just enjoying our family time, playing games, and just taking in this time that God has really given us back.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. That is so wonderful. Oh, I love it. I love it. Well, I'm so honored that you would take the time to talk through such a tough part of your life.
Well, I'm honored you wanted to interview me. I was like,
oh my goodness. It's so powerful. So when you look back on these years, what would you say, for you personally? We're not here giving advice saying this is what you're supposed to do, but for you, what would you say were, maybe the 3 things that you really took away from this process?
Well, God always has a plan. It's definitely not our plan. Like we want it to be our plan, but it's God's plan. It's amazing. We look at family different. We look at time with people different. We look at time different. Making moments and memories, and that we also know that we have to plan for our financial better because I know you can't really plan your kid getting cancer, but like this year we started a new thing with our kids. We because we're getting ready to move, so we are I'm taking a lot of their clothes that they don't want anymore and I'm selling it on Marketplace. And so we're taking that money that they make at Marketplace, and then like this month I think Reader made like $48 and Hunter made $50, and then we're going to have them start investing it each month. And my dad has been teaching them about the stock market because they have some stocks, and then they talk about where they want to put this money. And so we've been trying to just do better for them because we weren't taught.
Yeah.
And I buy, like I told, I buy a lot of things at the Goodwill outlet. So like one of Reader's coats, he made $25 off and I think I paid $2 for it. So I'm like, buddy, good job. Like,
man, that's a rate of return.
It's so good. But they're learning, and it's fun because they're like, I don't really wear this much. And so it's actually, we've just been learning it this year. So it's been our,
I want to interject one thing because, you had said you can't plan for your kid to get sick this way, but I do want to make sure that people know, there are companies, ours just happens to be Aflac, but, years ago, we ended up getting what would be called a cancer policy. So we have an accident policy. This was like, I had 3 boys. And so it's anything that happens externally. So anything that happens to them, which broken bones, Randy took a utility knife to his hand, trying to fix something, just these things that happen that way. So that's actually come in handy because of our boys. But the other one that I hope to God I'll never need to use is our cancer policy. And it's probably $30 a month or something like that for our entire family. And it's to cover the fallout, because again, if your kid's sick, it doesn't mean that you still have your full faculties to go to work.
Jaden
can't
work. He couldn't. I didn't make him. I told him he couldn't travel. I mean, we just look back at our taxes, and one year we made negative $1,500.
Wow.
God, we cried and laughed about it because God provided, literally how what?
Is that even possible?
That's impossible.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So,
exactly. So I just wanted to interject that because a lot of people might not know that exists, but it's not, it's not just cancer. You can,
or do they help with, the thing that really got us that we learned through this was that a lot of families who get childhood cancer, you have to quit your job.
Right.
You don't get help. I had to quit my job. My income Jay, he's independent contractor. So his job's, do this. My job was the secure job. And I had to quit that job, and nobody wanted to help. Nobody wanted to give money. I can tell you, I had to fill out so many applications. I'm thankful for so many foundations who helped us through it, because if it wasn't for them, we would have never survived.
Right. And thank God for that. And, but what you just said though, is what I see over and over again, is that predominantly in families, the mom is going to be the one that steps away from work to take care of their kids, and the lasting effects that can have. Good thing is you guys are still pretty young, but the lasting effects of caregiving for women are that you're not putting into retirement accounts, you're not feeding into your Social Security, you're not doing these things. So it's not only just the negative financial impact of caring for a child who is now needing all this additional care, but it's the loss of income, it's the loss of retirement income, it's the loss of experience that allows you, when you do finally get to go back out into the workforce, it's like, well, you haven't worked for the last, 4 years or whatever. What are your skills?
I know, really, you're like, what, why didn't you? And then, when you tell somebody, when I went back to work, when I'm telling my job, oh yeah, well, I didn't work because my daughter had cancer and she's still in treatment, but she's doing
Right.
really good.
Right.
Like it's like people don't want to, they don't want to hire. So they took a big chance. I mean, not that they took a big chance on me, but I'm thankful because that was when you have a 3-year gap and you say your kid is in treatment still. It's kind of like, oh gosh.
Yeah.
And I
And
have to leave next week, by the way, to go to New York for treatment. So
right.
please give me
Totally.
a job. Please, I'm
Totally.
begging you.
Totally. And I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, COVID has just had such an absolutely horribly negative impact on women worldwide because they do take the vast responsibility for childcare. And so all these kids being at home and all these women that have been laid off and everything. And yet we were really getting to a place where a lot of companies were extending the time that people could have for, maternity or, different things like that. And now we're like set back in this, I don't know how many years because of what COVID's done for women specifically, because of course that's what I focus on, women and money and how is all this interplay and everything. But, I think that that's just a really important component that I wanted to make sure that people did know that there are very inexpensive plans that you pray to God you'll never need to use that, help to replace income that's lost because a parent has to leave the workforce if their kid or their spouse gets sick. So so that was, I think, your second one, or was there one other thing that you had on there?
No, I think we had 3.
We got 3.
God
Okay.
always has a plan. We look different, like family, look at things differently, and then plan for our finances better.
Yeah. Okay. Very, very good.
I mean, we're starting over, and hopefully you'll like to guide us. No.
Yeah, that's right. Well, my book is definitely a good place to start because I have seen more women than I can even tell you, Kara, that have started at less than 0 in their 50s. And so, that's the beautiful part. You and your husband are still together. You're still focused on the same thing. You're still, you haven't like ripped everything apart. Right. And so just going, okay, well, this is where we're starting, and, just continue with the basics and everything. And you guys are fighters, obviously. And if you do it together and certainly continue to keep God at the center of it, it's all going to come together beautifully. I know it. I know it will. So I know we talked a little bit about some financial pieces, but kind of the last 3 rapid fire questions. What is a great piece of financial wisdom that you've been given?
From you. When we were sitting on that log, it was mind blowing to see how much money you actually could get to $1 million. Like, so from you.
The basics of compound interest, which your kids are learning. That's the beauty.
Yes. So,
geez, that's awesome.
Like I said, I want to do better. I want my kids to do better. And like, they're really cute. Like readers, like, I was like, oh, cause you want to invest in Fortnite, buddy? He's like, no, mom, Epic Games. I was like, oh, okay, sorry. Like, I'm like, okay. And he pays attention. He's like, I want to do Amazon. You get a lot of Amazon boxes. Good. Stay like looking at things. I'm like, well, we get a lot of Amazon boxes because we don't get to go out much, buddy. Yeah. Like, I guess it's true. Amazon does come a lot to.
No doubt about it. I love that. That's so great. And then what is a favorite book and why?
Okay, so I have 2 books. So one book I just read was this Spiritual Leadership by J. Oswald Sanders. And I got into a position at church where I was going to be a leader this coming year. And I was like, I don't even know how to be a leader. And then COVID hit and we couldn't even get our group together. And so the church put on this class for us, and it's been just great. Like from the beginning of this year, I wake up every morning early. I've never done that in my life. I sit in my sauna. It's my time with God in the morning. I do my devotion. I'm up before like 2 hours before my kids are, and I'm in there for an hour.
So proud of you.
Doing that. And then this one is 31 prayers for my husband. This is what I'm doing in the morning because we're really working on our marriage. And I guess it goes into my favorite quote, which you probably will be asking. And right now, my favorite quote is by one of my mentor moms. And she used to say to me, if you're not praying for your husband, then who is? And so that's like really stuck with me. And we're like really working on it. And I would feel like, oh yeah, I'm praying for my husband, but I have never really spent like deep down
direct.
Yes, like
focus.
I could be like, oh God, I can, and it's like in this, like my God, my husband's doing this, but never like diving deep just into praying for him.
And who wrote that book?
Jennifer Smith.
Okay.
Jennifer Smith. And
Very
her
good.
husband has one too. He made a male one. So, but yeah, that's my devotion. And then my book that I'm reading is The Spiritual Leadership.
I'm so proud of you getting up early in the morning.
I know. And that book, like really just, you have to be disciplined. And I never really was disciplined. So it's.
Yeah. I think my kids were about the age of your kids when I kind of had that God moment where he was like, you need to get yourself up an hour early. I'm like, I don't want to see a 5 on the clock, and everybody wakes up at different times and goes, I just go to bed early. But it was life-changing for me. I mean, that was well more than a decade ago, but it was just one of those things where I just felt like my life was dictating everything instead of getting up early, doing the things that you're doing. What do I do to take care of myself first? So I'm ready to face all of these other pieces, to be help for my kids, to be present with my husband, to be able to be a good friend, and to be able to make good financial decisions, and all the pieces that go along with it. So I really am so proud of you that you're doing that. That just pays dividends.
And it's one really cool thing too, is that my kids see me in the Bible. So, I mean, a lot of times I used to do my devotions on my phone and stuff, but when they see my books and stuff out, they see my Bible there. And that I think is, it's good. I mean, because then it gets them, like we were reading it just the other day, they picked it up. And so, maybe instead of them just seeing me on my phone, because they think I'm on Facebook, and right. I'm doing a devotion. They're like, yeah, right, Mom, you're on Facebook. Right. So they really know I'm doing my devotions now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. There's no Facebook in there. I love that. So I know that Jay's done a number of different things, then 2 of you together. How can our listeners find some of the things that you two are working on or have worked on and plug into that?
Well, you can follow Hunter's page on Facebook. It's #PrayForHunterRose. We need to be better at updating, but like I said, this month we're trying to do dry, like take Facebook off. We just did a podcast called On Mission. You can find it on YouTube. And I don't know, you can email me if you have any questions, karajones425@gmail.com.
Yeah, definitely. Well, you are such a wonderful woman, a great mom.
I'm so glad we met. God put us together. So it's awesome.
I know, me too. And, and I think of the woman that you were prior to that, because again, marking lives, prior to diagnosis and everything. And you were a beautiful, giving, loving, woman who had a heart for people and for the things of God. And you are just that and a whole lot more. And I'm so grateful that you would take the time to share your heart, to share your struggle, to be so open with it. And I just really, really sincerely appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for having me. I feel really loved. It was awesome.
Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad. Well, I will talk to you later.